So teaching is like acting, and the classroom is like a stage. That is to say, there is a significant analogy between the lesson you teach at school and a play that you produce on a stage. That is not to say that as a teacher you'll be dressing up in ridiculous costumes and channeling Shakespeare or Rodgers and Hammerstein, prancing around like an idiot on stage, but there is a common thread which is worth examining here. Even if at the end of the discussion you think, no, James, you're full of it, it's nothing like a lesson is nothing like a play, it's still worth examining. So let's get into it. Similarity number one is that there are clear starting and ending times, okay? In a stage play, when that curtain goes up, your play has started. And if you are an actor, that curtain going up means that you are out on stage and acting. And, ready or not, you're out there. And you'd better be ready, but that's a different topic. And if the curtain goes up and you realize, oh, damn, I forgot the gun. I'm supposed to kill the guy in 3 minutes. I don't have my gun with me. Then you get out on stage and you deal with it. You improvise. And the same thing holds when the curtain comes down, because that means that your play, or at least that act of the play, has finished. Keep prancing around on the stage all you like. Nobody's watching anymore. And it's similar in your lesson, not with a curtain, of course, but with the starting and ending chimes. When the starting chime rings at the beginning of your class, you got to begin the class right then and there. There's no turning to the students, and saying, can you guys just hold on? We're going to start in a minute. Just hold on a second. I'm running around up here, okay? No. The chime rings means that you need to get going. And if that starting chime is important, then an ending chime is even more important. You have to end your lesson right on that ending chime. Partly that's because the break that the students get after the end of your class, after that ending chime, those 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, that's the student's right. And there's no infringing on that right. Okay, that's their time to go to the bathroom, clean up from your lesson, prepare for their next lesson, okay? And you, just as a teacher, you don't have the right to go 2, 3, 4 minutes over or past that chime. That's sacred. And yet, I see all the time, I see teachers who are teaching the class and they come up to the end of the 45, 50 minutes and the chime rings and they look up at the clock and say, oh my goodness, is it that time already? Yes, it's that time already. Pull your head out of your ass. What have you been doing? As a teacher, one of your duties is to keep one eye on the clock throughout the whole lesson. And the closer you get to the end, those last 7 minutes, 5, 3, 2 minutes, 1 minute of class, you need to be laser focused on the time and stretching out that final activity or tightening it up a little bit, so that ideally when the students say, arigatou gozaimashita, or whatever it is they say at your school, they say different things at different schools. You want that owari no aisatsu, arigatou gozaimashita, you want that to overlap perfectly with the chime. It is extremely hard to hit, but it's what you need to aim for. And there's no going over that chime, or beyond that chime, by more than just a moment, okay? Similarity number two between your lesson and a stage play is that there is a script. And I hear you say, no, there's not. Well, there certainly is in a play. I mean, every play, even plays with some degree of improvisation, are going to have, at least in rough terms, a script, usually a very rigid script. Okay, everybody knows what it is. Every actor on stage knows what's happening. And in your class too, if you have prepared your lesson as thoroughly as you really should, then that lesson plan is going to come to resemble a script. You're going to think about not only what you're teaching or explaining, but how you're explaining and what words you're going to use to explain. It's worth noting here that Japanese teachers, when they teach what they call a kenkyu jigyo, which directly translates as research lesson, we would call it sort of a demonstration lesson. This is the lesson where other teachers, maybe from the same school, from other schools, maybe from the BOE, come in and sit and observe the lesson. In any case, when Japanese teachers make their lesson plan for this demonstration lesson or kenkyu jigo, they will put together a 2-page A4, 2-page, a lesson plan, a table in Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever, black with ink, and it almost is a script to what they're going to be actually saying during the class. Okay, the point is that the more thoroughly you prepare for your class, the closer that preparation, that lesson plan is going to come to resembling an actual physical script. Now, I don't prepare quite that much most of the time, but I do try and think about how I'm going to express things when I'm explaining a game, particularly in English, as I always use English in the classroom. Similarity number 3 has to do with the idea of props. Okay, so in a stage play, clearly you're going to have various items out on the stage, tables and chairs and those weird stage doors that don't go anywhere, and a gun in the desk drawer that you're going to use to kill the guy in 5 minutes. Okay, anyway, and to state the obvious, in a stage play, those are all out and in place and ready to go before the curtain never goes up, right? Okay, the curtain doesn't go up and you still have stagehands running around in the background just saying, don't mind us, we're just getting these things ready. No. everything is out and in place and ready to go before that curtain ever goes up. And the same thing happens or should happen in your lesson, okay? Because you'll have a lot of, not props per se, but physical items you'll be using throughout your lesson. Chalk, if you have a blackboard, markers, if you have a whiteboard. Before that curtain ever goes up, before that starting chime ever rings, you need to make sure that you have enough chalk and that it's out on the board and in the right colors. The same is true for markers if it's a whiteboard. And you have checked that you have ink in those markers. So when you pick up the red one and you're going to write something and you think you want to write something in red on the board and you get a pink smear and you think, damn, I should have checked that this had ink in it. What was I thinking? Flashcards, if you're using them, they're out and counted and you've checked that you have enough and they're written in the right order if there's an order to them, like ABC, alphabet flashcards. And that none of them are like upside down or something like that. Magnets, if you're using them, they're out and they're by the blackboard or wherever it is that you're going to be using them and they're ready to go and in the right number. Handouts, worksheets, quizzes are out of your bag or box or whatever it is that you brought them to class in. And you've checked that you have enough for all of the students and one for yourself and one for your JTE. And maybe you sort of, you know how you do, tap them on the table to get them all lined up and you sort of fan them out with your fingers so that they're easy to peel off 3 or 4 or 5 when you're handing the worksheets out to your students and like that. Videos and songs are terrific, and videos are underused. A lot of ALTs, certainly JTs too, tend, in my experience, to underuse videos. They're a terrific resource for your classroom. In any case, if you have a video or a song for the students, to state the obvious, your device, your computer, your phone, your tablet is out and powered up and connected to the Wi-Fi or connected to the TV or the speaker. And that video or that song is loaded up on the device and you've pressed play and then pressed pause so that immediately so that that video or that song buffers up in the background. And you've checked that if you're connected to the TV, you've checked that the sound actually does come out of the TV and that the volume is adjusted at least approximately correctly. And as an aside, if you're using a Windows computer and trying to get sound to come out of your TV, God help you. God help you. Windows is not designed for that. Students, for their part, to the extent that they are participants in this lesson, not simply an audience, their textbooks, their workbooks are out and at the ready. Their pencil cases are ready to go. Okay, everything's out on their desk and ready to go. Chromebooks, tablets, if they're part of your lesson. I don't like to use Chromebooks and tablets myself, but you may. They are, if not out and open and on the desk because they'd be a distraction, at least they're at the ready, okay? And at least they're charged and like that. That needs to be taken care of long before the class ever starts, of course. Okay, the takeaway here is that the 10 minutes or so before class, certainly the 5 minutes, 3 minutes directly, before class starts, can be the most hectic part of your class. But once everything physical that you'll be using in your class is out and in place and ready to go, a sort of a peace can fall over you. The hard part's done, in a sense, okay? Everything's out and ready, and in preparing everything, get everything out and ready, you've also gone through your lesson plan one more time in your head. Now, the hard part's done. Now, the easy part comes, the fun part comes. And it may sound as if you're sort of racing around, running through your lesson, okay, the way you've run through and raced to get things ready. But actually, the opposite is true. Now you can take your time because you know for a fact, right? Your magnets are ready, your flashcards, your worksheets, that song, that video you're going to be showing later. Everything is ready to go. And you can just take your time now and relax. Similarity number 4 has to do with the idea that teaching itself is performative, okay, in your voice, in your gestures, the way you carry yourself. And this is probably what you were thinking when you saw the title of this video. Actors, if you've ever seen a stage play, and you probably have, this may not occur to you, but actors always face the audience, even when they're talking to somebody over here, okay? It would be more natural to actually face, if it were an actual conversation, not a stage play, they would turn to face this other person over here. They never do. They may turn to face them just momentarily, their face, but their body's always facing the audience, and then they find a reason to basically address the audience like this. You'll never, ever in a stage play, you never see the back of the actor's head. You never see their back at all, okay? And the same is true often in TV and in movies too. Generally, the exception being Tom Cruise when he's riding his motorcycle off the cliff, you see his back, but that's again the exception to the rule. Actors' motions tend to be side to side rather than what is it? What's the opposite of lateral? I forget. Vertical? That's not it. Damn. Maybe I'll put it down here if I think of it. My point is this. If you're my audience, okay, and if I'm teaching you, and if I do this, you can see this just fine. I don't know why we do this in a classroom. My point is that although this motion is perfectly visible to you, fine, great, wonderful, let's just notice that the equivalent motion side to side, this lateral motion here, just stands out much more. Okay, so as a teacher, you may want to think about sort of prioritizing these lateral side-to-side moves over moves that are sort of back and forth like this. As a teacher, you're going to talk differently, speak differently than you would ordinarily. If I'm asking you, how are you? And I probably just say, hey, how are you? How are you? And it can be hard to hear. If I'm asking a student, how are you? It's going to come out a little differently. You're not being unnatural, but you are being maybe a little over the top, sort of clear in your diction. Your intonation is going to be just a little bit exaggerated. If I'm asking a student, do you like sports? Okay, if I were asking you for whatever sick reason, okay, do you like sports? I'm going to ask you, do you like sports? But if you're asking the student, it's going to come out something like, do you like sports? And then and the student says yes, and if I want to sort of, dig in a little deeper, I may say, if I were just speaking to a native speaker, I'd say, well, what sport do you like? What sport are you into? Or something like that. But if I'm speaking to a student, again, I'm going to do it a little differently. What sport do you like? Like that, okay? Now, do as I say, not as I do. I don't claim to be very good at this myself, but there is a performative aspect to the way you perform, okay, and teach in front of the students. Tip number 5 on this list has to do with the issue, or the concept, I should say, of spotlight or focus. I like to think of it as a spotlight. In a play, you will often have multiple actors on the stage, but 2 will be standing at the center of the stage, maybe talking or discussing or plotting or arguing or fighting or something, and other actors on the stage are standing off to the side and doing everything they can, everything in their power to be as uninteresting as possible. Something similar happens in the classroom, okay? Because in the classroom, you will always be in there with a JTE. And sometimes the focus will be on the 2 of you together because you're doing small talk or something like that. Or sometimes it'll be on you because you're leading your game or activity. And sometimes it'll be that focus, that spotlight, metaphorical spotlight, of course, will be on the JTE, okay, because they're standing in front of the blackboard, explaining some grammar point, and they're just not involving you. When that happens in the classroom, okay, when the JTE thinks or thinks that they want to have the spotlight, they want to be alone in the spotlight, and then the class just isn't involving you right now, do everything in your power to stand as far away, physically as far away from them as you can get, and be as uninteresting as possible. You want to help the students to focus on the actors, not the actors, the teachers who are in that, again, metaphorical spotlight, in this case, the JTE. As an aside, be aware that when it comes to this idea of focus or spotlight, a lot of JTEs seem not to have got the memo on this, and when you're leading your game or activity, you will encounter JTEs who kind of walk around and do exactly what I've told you here not to do, sort of talk to the students, translate what you're saying, comment, okay, and sort of hog the spotlight a little bit, even though the spotlight really should be on you. There's nothing you can do about that in my experience. All right. Next time in the classroom, okay, try thinking of the chimes that ring at the start and the end of your class as something like the curtain going up or down in a play, okay? Think of your words as something to be scripted to some extent at least, okay? Think of the physical items you'll be using in the classroom, the chalk and the flashcards and everything else, as props to be made ready and put in place before that curtain ever goes up, which is to say before that starting chime ever rings. Think of your actions as a sort of a performance, okay, to be adjusted. It shouldn't be gaudy, it shouldn't be over the top, but it should be a little bit performative. They should be a little bit performative. And finally, imagine a physical spotlight, okay, in the middle of the ceiling, okay, pointing at, illuminating either the JT or you, the ALT, or the 2 of you together, depending on the nature of your activity. And respect that spotlight and defer to the JTE when they have that spotlight. So, all right, I hope you guys found this interesting. As usual, I don't give a rat's ass if you like or subscribe. I would like to encourage you to, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down here. And I always do make a habit or make it a point to respond, answer questions, respond to comments like that. I really enjoy making these videos, by the way. It's a lot of fun. And so again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.